Introducing Billboard Pal, the mobile billboard. With your Billboard Pal, you can advertise anywhere, anytime. Just find your target audience and make unlimited connections. Billboard Pal makes advertising fun and affordable. Stand out from the crowd. Your future customers are ready to meet you.
Content over everything!
It's the Muslims, it's Islam. Now the narratives become different.
But let's be honest. Muslims are already having that conversation. They've been having it for decades, right?
Yeah, of course.
The biggest difference is Muslims, blacks, they will have that discussion. Like, we have the biggest problem with stabbing in London.
You discuss that within your community,
We discuss that.
Yeah. Now, if I start telling you, oh, the blacks need to do more, you're gonna feel like, bro, you don't need to talk to me. I'm like,
I already know the problems of my own.
By me doing that, you're gonna say, bro, now you know, no, I'm not gonna do what? Because now you're putting me in the corner. Don't do that to the community. Let them deal with the issue.
Let them deal with the issue. And that's the thing. No one corners the white British public on the fact that they are the highest perpetrators when it comes to child pornography. No one will say that. No one will say that. And let's be honest. When we're talking about grooming, right? That's the lowest priority when it comes to protecting children.
I'm with you.
Child pornography and child abuse is the
problem.
highest.
So why don't we have that conversation?
But they want you to concentrate on the Muslim community. Not on the biggest spectrum.
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't want to demonize anyone who's a paedophile or anything like that.
We don't want to do that.
I think there needs to be a little bit more of a nuanced discussion on people who identify as paedophiles and stuff like that, because I feel too many people are a bit too emotional when it comes to that subject.
Yeah.
There's a difference between child abusers and paedophiles.
There's a big difference. There's actually a big difference.
Exactly.
Because that's a good point.
There's paedophiles that don't abuse. Now bear in mind, right?
That doesn't mean we're trying to say
Let's get this straight.
They put all they clip you out.
Having sex with children is wrong. But the only reason I have a problem with that is because when I ask people specifically, why do you think having sex with children is wrong? They will never be able to quote the studies and the research that goes behind the thing, right? They just know it because that's what they've been brought up to read.
But you know the reasoning behind it.
100%, I research the stuff. So I know in particular there's people who abuse and people who don't abuse. And most of the time, the people who do the most abusing aren't even pedophiles.
Wow.
They're statistical abusers.
Wow.
So they're people who take advantage of the vulnerability of children in general. That's the majority.
Wow.
So it means that most people who identify as a pedophile, because there's this thing called the virtuous pedophiles and whatever, they don't even abuse the children more than we do.
Wow.
So it's like we can blame them, we can keep demonizing them, but apparently...
Is that solving the issue? Is that just blame?
It's not solving the issue, it's not solving the issue. So we need to cut down this culture of shame and actually start talking to people, regardless if we like them or not.
Yeah.
Because ultimately that will result
in
us...
Dialogue is key, isn't it?
100%.
And dialogue in a respectful way, bro.
Education is
and
power.
Any emotions from any side needs to be dismissed, bro.
But it's the same with, like, say, with the grooming, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's saying these big statistics, 84% of grooming gangs are Muslim.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Yeah. If you go into it, I'm sure.
The research method, if you go to the internet now, right, and type in grooming gangs, you'll only get Asian articles.
Yeah.
If you look for white grooming gangs, it's pedos, it's sick group, it's thugs.
Talk to the guy.
Imagine naming a pedophile ring thugs. Like, it makes no sense. So you can't find these articles under grooming gangs. So these are the specific kind of like methods that these articles use. They look on the internet, they type in grooming gangs, and they know it will come up specifically Asian groups. Yeah. That's where they get the 84% from. Yeah, if you look at the real statistics, when we're talking specifically about Muslim, they are the minority within the Asian section. Because bear in mind, when this government, when they seem to see a group of people, they don't see them as individual cults. They see them as a group of people. So you'll get Oriental Asians mixed with, Palestinian Arabs.
Broad term,
and it's like
it's
a completely different diet. It's a completely different geographical.
It's such a broad term.
Exactly, such a broad term.
We need to be very careful. I think we should be very careful in our language, bro.
Because language
we're so politically correct in this country. When it comes to those kind of things, Asians
But that's the thing. You say we're politically correct, but then why are our newspapers naming grooming gangs of Asians grooming gangs?
Asians, yeah.
But calling grooming gangs of white people thugs?
Yeah,
that's not politically correct.
It's like a terrorist attack.
Yeah,
when a Muslim does something, it's terrorism. No problem, it is.
No problem.
But when someone non-Muslim does it, he's crazy.
You see what I'm saying?
Oh, he must have been crazy.
100%.
Oh, you're crazy. I do it in the news now. Whenever I see someone non-Muslim do a terrorist attack, I'm like, let me guess, he's crazy. 2 minutes later, he was crazy.
That's the thing, though. That's the thing. Like,
wrong is wrong, innit? Wrong is wrong unequivocally, innit?
A white kid can show up at school and kill 10 people, right? They'll say he's mentally ill. A Muslim will fart. They'll be like, I heard Allah Akbar. Run.
They'll be like, there must be some textual evidence to support this. It's like, bro, the guy's just a nut house. It's obviously extreme. So no, textually, like those grooming gangs, you can't tell me they use text to justify what they were doing. you know they were people just messing around and taking a piss, and they got punished for it. And to say that Islam, so were they basically practicing Muslim who were looking at texts and saying, now I know what to do, I'm gonna go out. No, man, it doesn't work like that, bro.
Dude, you can't do that. It's like reading the British history and then going out and being like, yeah, you know what? We need to subjugate all minorities. What? Like, that's not how it works. That's not how it works.
It's just not how it is.
Yeah, it's mad the way we kind of like politicize everything and word everything. It's very kind of like there's still a system of like, I don't like to say this in particular because I used to think it was a myth, but there is still a system of white supremacy where generally white people get away and they get a pass for everything.
There is a level.
Minorities, we have to be held at a high standard, and you can see this in particular when they're trying to shut down places like Carnival because of the drug use. But we know the Reading Festival is ripe with drugs. Yeah. We know that they found 50,000 worth of drugs
when the borough brings
last
stats,
year.
When the borough starts bringing stats,
50,000 worth of drugs last year. The year before that,
they were crazy.
Yeah, there was 80 cars. 80 cars burnt up. That's 80 cars. That's property damage. That's fucked. Yeah. Did you hear anything about shutting down Reading Festival? No, because what? It's majority middle class white people. But when we talk about Carnival, right? No one has died at Carnival. Yeah. People have overdosed at Reading Festival. Every year. But we want to shut down Carnival because why? Because it's brown and white, brown and black people. That's all they want to do. And the whole point of Carnival is to celebrate the integration of London, the diversity
I think black people have too much fun. They're like, no, too much fun. You're having too much fun.
That's a bit too much liberation. Like, calm down.
No, you're right.
You can see this in America as well. You're not even allowed to kneel while you sing the national anthem, which used to have a line saying that we condone slavery. What?
Wow.
Are you taking the piss?
Wow.
Like, and these people are cussing. These people are cussing liberals because liberals used to get pissed off at everything. And let me get this straight. Like,
there is an extreme on
the left is like they've gone a bit mad. They've gone a bit mad.
Yeah,
they've gone a bit mad.
There's got to be some limit. We've got to have balance in it.
Sometimes I can't even look at a woman and be like, oh, you know what? That's oppressive, fam. I find her attractive. That's oppressive. That's something wrong. That's something wrong.
Suppressing a manly desire.
Exactly. That's a valid desire. We're meant to find women attractive. All men, whatever. Cool. That's your choice. At the end of the day, I should be able to live without that persecution as long as I don't abuse anyone's human rights. I should be able to live without that persecution. But in particular, we have people like Tommy Robson who don't give a fuck. They don't want to read the statistics because let's be honest, it's that group of people, English lads, no offense, but like English lads, the football culture and everything.
It's basically
they want violence. They want violence, and there's no myth that these football lads want violence because the domestic violence statistic goes up every time England lose a football game. Like, yo, come on! Like,
that means it goes up a lot.
Exactly. There's an inherent problem with their culture that they will brush aside, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? Cool. There's no point painting everyone as a certain whatever because it's a small group of people that don't represent everyone else. They don't. But my problem is drawn where you then find it the cheek in yourself to then criticize everyone else. Barely even 3% of the Muslim community caught in grooming gangs, and you want to label a whole religion. Miss me with that shit. So
you know what's interesting though is that what's interesting with the Tommy Robinson phenomenon is that I'm seeing a lot of educated people going towards that. So before it was just like, you would say, okay, the guy is just literally drinking in the pub all day, football culture, no problem. But now I'm seeing academic people that are a bit more intelligent going towards it, and that's scary, bro.
But that's the thing.
Because you're getting intellectuals going towards them.
But that's the thing. You're always gonna have racism, regardless. It's not from the bottom up. Racism has always started from the top down. When we talk about racism in particular, we like to bring up the people like Tommy Robson who are they're vocal, whatever. But we need to realize that all that eugenic stuff came from people who were researchers. These people back in the day used to think that having a bigger skull meant that you were more intelligent, right?
It used to come with those kind of statistics.
They used to come with those kind of statistics. They dropped that quick time as soon as they found out the Arabs had bigger skulls than the Europeans.
They're like, well, that can't be true.
They dropped that quick time.
That's not
so, in particular, to me, that's not science. That's not you trying to spread the truth.
That's you basically spreading racism in a scientific way. In a scientific way.
So, in particular, you have like Douglas Murray and that who read these statistics and whatever.
He's another academic like that.
Exactly, another academic. But they'll read only those statistics. They won't read the peer reviews after. They won't read the critiques after and just check if they're valid or not. Like people like to state the bell curve study and whatever, and the bell curve study has been disproven like various times, but there's people who don't want to hear anything else. There's research out there, and they're the same people saying, leftists, you need to go out and do your research.
Your research inadequate.
Just because you read a little bit
maybe
further
a little
than
bit of
the
information is
headlines.
a bit more dangerous than no information. Sometimes they say a little bit of information,
You know what?
which is
I
incorrect,
agree.
is sometimes
I
more
agree.
dangerous.
If you look at children,
Yeah.
you don't find these problems in children. Children get along with all sets of things.
It's only when they get mentally conditioned,
that's it,
and then they're ready. They're like,
That's it.
well, you're different to me, and
That's
now I
it.
have to, yeah.
Racism
And the children, they don't have, because by fitra, by nature, you don't have that issue.
That's the thing. Racism isn't natural. It's not natural, You put children in a playground
They
full
will
of
play.
X, Y, and
That's
Z.
a
They
good
will
point.
play.
That's a good
They
point.
will
That's a
play.
good point.
It's only later on when we condition
When we
them to have
condition their
certain
minds, yeah.
benefits. That's when they start to draw groups.
100%.
Start to separate each other, start to put each other into boxes. Because the truth is, if you start putting people in boxes, it's a lot easier to control them politically. You
Yeah.
know who's going to vote for who.
Yeah.
But if everyone was out of the box
Yeah.
and they didn't attach themselves to labels, attach themselves to groups, the government would have a hard time when it came to elections.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be able to predict shit.
Yeah, 100%.
Whole research would be worth shit because they wouldn't know what people were going to vote, and that's where we've kind of like just funneled ourselves into this mentality of tribalism where it's all politically grouped.
But you know what, here's something
kind of thing.
interesting. We've discussed racism today, yeah?
Yeah.
On a brief, and obviously, alhamdulillah, you're learned in the subject. But in terms of what the Tommy Robinson phenomenon I see is that the way he comes across is he's going past the racist element. He's saying it's become a whole Islamic issue now.
Yeah.
So if someone wants to critique Islam and
Yeah.
discuss, it's not an issue.
Yeah.
But if your job 24/7 is only about Islam,
Yeah.
that's the problem.
But that's the thing.
Because I think that basically,
exactly.
because he keeps talking about a specific community to me, or you do, constantly in my head.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go out and have an issue with that community, bro.
Of course,
You
100%.
and you can't say to me, oh, I'm just doing free speech, bro. It will lead to me saying, you know what, I don't like these lot. It's just normal. If I go home every day, my mum and dad are speaking about the same people every single day.
You're gonna hate them.
I'm gonna,
You're
and,
gonna
and,
hate
then, and then when I come out, I'm gonna be like, no, they were just critiquing you. It's not critiquing. You're filling my head, bro.
Yeah.
Because you're not discussing with the vast majority.
But that's-
You're not having academic discussions. You're just saying, oh yes, Muslim grooming gang and Muslim. Bro, it mentally it leaves. It's inception.
Yeah.
You leave it in the head
But
and it grows.
that's the thing.
This society, they groom the children themselves.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
why
we were
you
just saying
mentioned
that a moment
Yeah.
ago. But we were talking about like freedom of speech like the other day and stuff, and I read up on freedom of speech, and a lot of people who argue freedom of speech said that there should be freedom of flow within information, meaning that you shouldn't keep out certain bits of information to create your own narrative because that creates a bias.
Wow.
So with
mean
a
you
lot
give
of
it
these
out
people-
there and then
yeah,
you can
exactly.
and you judge.
Exactly. A lot of these people, what they do is they cherry pick certain statistics, and this is on the right and the left.
Right and the left,
They cherry
yeah.
pick certain statistics, and it fits their narrow narrative. For me in particular, right, if I were to do a research and I wanted to paint all Muslims as like pedophiles and whatever, all I'd have to do is go to Tower Hamlets, do a survey because I know
In that
Tower
area, 'cause
Hamlets is majority
Muslim,
Muslim, and then nowhere
And
else,
go
no
further,
study nowhere
Asians,
else,
Asians,
no
yeah,
study
yeah.
nowhere
Yeah.
else, and then compare it to the whole of the UK and say this is a problem in the whole of the UK. That study is flunked.
Yeah, it's flunked.
It's flunked.
But from the outside, it looks very good.
Of course.
From the outside, I'm
Of
like,
course.
wow.
But people are working 9 to 5. They don't have
They
time,
got time
to
to
be
look
reading.
in
These,
deep-
pa-
they
these
look at it for a
papers are
minute,
long
yeah,
to
yeah,
read.
yeah. They look-
The other day I was reading one. I was like, fuck, man, it's been 5 hours I've been reading this paper, you know. But people haven't got that time. They've got families. They've got commitments. They've got
It's
things that they
literally
want to
quick
enjoy.
article,
So exactly,
it's in your head now.
That's it. You,
Quick articles
you
in your
trust
head.
these people. You trust these people to educate you. You don't trust these people to then create
To mislead
fear,
you, to mislead
create
you.
hate in your heart, kind of thing. But this is exactly what they do. They make money off this as well.
No, there's
Every-
definitely- there's
how
definitely,
often-
there's definitely money.
how often do you see a Muslim run to a school waiting with their camera to be like, this is what the white man is doing, this is what the white man is doing? How many times have we seen Tommy Robson and his fans wait for a terrorist attack to happen, rush there and be like, this is what Islam is doing?
Look,
only
look,
for
yeah,
it
yeah.
to end up being a white person.
And then it's like, okay, let's just
They
do that.
hope, they pray every night, let a terrorist attack happen tomorrow. And then they kind of distribute this
And you know what?
news.
You know what's funny? When there's an attack, Muslims, like, well, I would say myself, I'll look at it and I'll be like, please don't let me be a Muslim. You see how it's? Why is that in my head? But why is that in my head?
No,
But why
it's
is that in my head though?
Exactly, it's the same with blacks. Every time there's a stabbing, I'm like,
Please don't
for
let me.
the love of God.
Yeah. Please don't let me.
please
So
let-
why do we think like that?
Exactly.
You see, because it's there.
And the worst
bro.
thing is, my girlfriend's white, and she has the same mentality. When she looks at the news and she sees the stabbing, she's like, oh, fuck's sake, please don't let it be black.
see, yeah.
Because she knows that there's people out there who haven't got the time to educate themselves. They see the news and they think this is just indicative of what is going on in the
They'll
UK.
use it like that.
And this is the news in particular. I was reading on the Medium, there was an article where basically it was talking about the grooming gangs and whatever. And it said, coincidentally, this grooming gang articles, or this phenomenon, kind of came out at the same time that Rupert Murdoch and his lot were basically being investigated for tapping phones.
So maybe to
So
divert attention.
it's funny. And that was 7 years ago.
Wow.
7 years ago. And look at the state we're in now.
Wow.
Like,
Wow.
we're that easy to separate.
timing's
We're that-
amazing,
Yeah, we're that easy to separate. And you know what they did with that study as well? They found 17 cases over a span of 14 years. That's not that many
17
cases.
over 14 years.
Any researcher would have chucked that research out
But they used it
ages
anyway.
ago. But they used it anyway. They pushed it forward.
was just to
and
push away from what's
And
going
then
on.
when they went to do the same research, right, and kind of like replicate it kind of thing, because they never put out the research methods. That's the problem with these lot. They never put out the research methods.
What's the
so people
methodology?
can't
What's the methodology?
So people can't critique it and people can't replicate it, right? But people kind of found a way of replicating it in particular, and they found that even when, right, you type in grooming gangs, right, there was a sufficient amount more than the Times actually claimed. So they didn't even bother to do their research. That's in half a day. They found 126, where the Times found 3 white groomers, right? White groomers, cool, no problem. So continuing on from there, they put out this article, and then you have Quilliam, who I don't know what their beef with Muslim is in particular, and I'm gonna call them up and try to call them out on it. But
I think the guy that came here, Adam, I think you can have a nice conversation.
Yeah,
with
I'll
him.
have a
I think Majid Nawaz tends to be a bit more. He's a difficult one. But I think Adam's someone I think you can at least dialogue with.
No, I need to set Majid straight, just because in particular he
He
says that
stigmatizes.
numbers are key. So he can't argue with numbers. I'll present him his own numbers, and he won't be able to argue.
I'm with you. He stigmatizes. He stigmatizes.
He 100%
He does his game.
stigmatizes.
Do you believe this? Do you believe that? And then it's like there's certain things that Muslims believe that are within text. But it's contextualization, but we believe it.
Exactly.
So he'll say, do you believe it? And the minute you believe it, he'll be like, you're extremist. Now,
But
that
exactly,
stigmatizes me, bro.
yes.
I'm like, bro,
Exactly.
but I'm not on that. He's like, yeah, but this is in the text. Do you believe it? Do you believe in that verse?
sympathizing.
And like, every Muslim's going to say, I believe in the Quran.
Yeah.
He'll quote a verse.
Yeah.
He'll say, do you believe in this? You'll be like, yeah. He'll be like, oh, you're extremist. You're like
Exactly.
He stigmatizes you, bro.
I want to know the deeper context of
Yeah,
it. I want to
totally,
know the
yeah.
deeper information.
What
So when I make a
said, what they
judgment,
differed on,
when I make a
etc.
judgment,
Yeah.
I'm 100% know that that's judgment coming from me,
Yeah.
not someone else. That's judgment coming from me.
Nah,
in
he
particular.
stigmatizes a lot. He
stigmatizes tons.
Adam,
It's like-
Adam's a well-spoken guy. He came a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you
Yeah.
saw.
Okay.
He spoke to, I think he spoke to Hijab. He spoke to a couple other people.
Yeah.
He's a good brother, man. I think you speak to him. Yeah.
That was a job.
Bro, I ain't seen him since that day, bro.
Because this is the thing,
I ain't
like
seen him
Hijab's gone missing, right? And
he
a
gone
lot of
missing
people.
since that day?
No, I haven't seen him since. Like, just
for a
I wanted
minute,
to have
yeah,
a word with him because I feel like what happened to him was unfair.
No,
it was
yeah,
unfair.
I'm with you. No.
In particular, we say that Tommy Robson can't go to jail because he's not inciting violence, even though he says stuff like, musrats, where the Jews.
That's a big thing.
Exactly,
That's a big
thing.
line.
You're paying certain people in a certain line. You're mandating for them to be treated a certain way.
And they've got issue with Sadiq Khan as well. They've got issue with Sadiq Khan as well, innit?
Yeah. And I want to say in particular, I don't know what they have against Sadiq
Well,
Khan.
I know what it is, bro. He's banning his Muslims.
He's brown.
I know what it is, bro.
But in particular, hijab can turn up to a freedom of speech debate,
swung,
right?
and get swung like that.
And then wait. They say that because he brought a mouth guard, that he was inciting violence.
It's unfair. It's double standard.
You see what I'm saying? The double
you gotta call out
standard
wrong
is
is
right.
wrong.
So
innit?
you
It's
gotta
not-
call out
I'm
wrong.
not even on that business, bro. Wrong is wrong, innit?
Wrong is wrong.
He turned up, bro, and they
I
violated, bro.
I don't
So
see
it's
colour.
just
I don't
wrong.
see colour. If you're a criminal, you're a criminal at
It's
the end of the
wrong.
day. And even then, I'm not gonna judge you
But
for
you know
a
what?
criminal.
I was expecting a lot of guys from their side, the Tony Robinson, some of them would have called it out and said, "Bro, what is this?" They were quiet, bro.
They don't care.
They're quiet.
They don't care. Do you not remember what 50 years, 60 years ago? No blacks, no dogs, no Irish.
Yeah,
They
you're
don't
right,
care.
yeah,
They don't
you're right.
care. If you've been given your bit of privilege, regardless where you are,
But they
you don't
smart.
care about anyone
but
else
the thing
below
is,
you.
You see, when you say black, they've moved off that narrative now.
Oh,
They've
of course.
realised that's dangerous.
They've included the white working class British people
Yeah.
in their narrative,
Yeah,
and now
yeah.
they're feeling some type of way because they're like, we're part of the empire.
We're part of the empire. Nah. And not only that, they know that you can't say black people. You can't say dogs, obviously Irish. You can't say them kind of things, yeah.
Yeah.
But what you can say is Islam. Yeah, it's smart. It's very smart. It's like because you can't say them three, but you can say Islam. And if you've got a real issue with Islam, bro, why are you stigmatizing whole communities?
And this is the thing.
Deal with extremism, bro. Deal with the extremist issue.
The same thing as well. They try to say that you can't say you're racist because Islam is not a religion.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But as soon as you comment
I found a lot of
as soon as you comment on Jews,
Yeah, I was just
you're
gonna
racist.
say, I found a lot of similarities. What's happened to Jewish people?
I don't have a problem with Jews.
No, you
I
can't
think
say
they're
that. Yeah, no, of
fairly
course you
nice
can't,
people. But in particular, we have such a big thing against anti-Semitism, which is a good thing.
It's a good
I
thing.
believe it's a
Because
good
of what they've
thing.
gone through.
If
Yeah,
you know the
because
history
of
of the
what they've gone
Holocaust,
through, they have
it's
to
a
be
good
stopped.
thing.
Yeah, it has
will
to be
never
stopped.
happen again. Never again. But why is it?
But
then?
I get a feeling that it's going. The foundations are being laid for the same thing, maybe with us.
100%, man.
Because the thing is, the biggest blunder they do is they put all of us, like you said when I first met you, there's so many different sects.
There's so
How
many different
are you
sects of
putting
Islam.
all
Come
of us
on.
in one category?
That's the thing. You guys don't even agree with each other half
Yeah,
the time. So
bro,
it's like
we come here, bro. People fighting us.
The idea that you all get
We come
together
here,
and
Muslims fighting
organize
us,
this
bro.
grooming,
Yeah.
oh fuck it, our religion doesn't matter.
Oh, forget it,
Let's co-op so that we can groom all of these girls together. Come
No,
on,
bro,
man. No one does that. Like,
no one. That's sickness in the head, bro. Other people, they're the ones that are sick. The ones that groom, they're sick.
That's
But
the
no
fun-
one's ever called them
that's
sick,
the funny
bro.
thing. That's the funny
They're
thing.
actually
That's
sick.
the funny thing. You come to Speaker's Corner, right? You won't find a conviction amongst the Muslim about child abuse. Go to the EDL, you will find a long list.
I can imagine.
A long list of convictions, pedophiles, and so on, right? So again, it's
You know what's interesting?
It's the same people. It's the
but
same
you know what?
people.
You know what's interesting is that the ED. It's like when you speak to someone, they're like, oh, but they're not part of the idiom anymore. I'm like, yeah, the label's gone. I get it. The label's gone. But it's like, you know ISIS, yeah? ISIS take away the name ISIS and they call themselves Al-Qaeda. It's the same people, it's a different name.
It's the same people,
They're doing the same shit.
It's the same people, like
different name.
Rebranding your racism.
Yeah, it's the same. You got one day they're called Al-Qaeda, one day called Jamaat al-Nusra, one day called ISIS. The same name for different shit.
Rebranding your racism doesn't make it
Different
any
name
different.
for same shit, sorry.
It doesn't make it any different. And the thing is, Tommy is smart as well.
He's smart.
He moves from different group to different group. So as soon as he realized one group is compromised, he would then move on to the next group.
Obviously, look, with Tommy Robinson, like I said when I first met you here, experiences change people.
Yeah.
What you go through makes you judge a community and you become biased in your mind.
100%.
So he grew up in Luton, bro. And at that time, there was a lot of extremists there with the whole Al-Muhajirun, bro. So that's definitely shaped his mind.
Yeah.
But what he needs to do is be the big man and say, listen, deal with the extremist element, don't deal with the whole religion, bro. And that's where he goes wrong.
But that's the thing.
A lot of the imams,
lack
a
of
lot of the scholars, they
intelligence.
say, if you dealt with the issue, if you dealt with the extremists, we'll all be with you.
But like I said,
But you stigmatize the whole of the religion, bro.
But that's the thing, like I said, no one is running out here saying that we need to get rid of all the middle-aged white British men because they rape babies.
No, of course not.
No one is saying that.
Bro. No way.
So I don't understand why you're then but anyway, like in particular. Yeah, go ahead.
Have you seen the government response to the grooming gang petition?
The Grooming gang petition?
Yes.
You're going to have to explain to me because I haven't seen it.
There's been a petition sent to Parliament.
Yeah.
And after 10,000 signatures, there has to be a government response to that.
Of course.
And that's just come out this last few weeks. I was just asking if you've seen the response.
Tell us.
Oh, well, there's one particular sentence that stuck out to me.
Yeah.
It's that the government are supportive of an open debate about the racial motivations.
Of course,
behind.
which they should, yeah.
Well, that's quite
Strong statement.
when it differentiates between looking at the perpetrators
And
religion,
yeah.
but on the motives that they have to abuse.
Yeah.
Sorry, let me let you finish. Go on.
So then, if someone is abusing, or a group of people are abusing somebody because they're not of their own religion or they're not of their own race, that's open for debate.
Of course, it is open for debate. In particular, I would ask you to try and cite, right? And I've read this, to try and cite basically where anyone has ever said it's because of their religion, their race, or whatever that they've groomed certain people. And the reason I say that in particular is because the studies that these people have referred to have said themselves, right? There is no trend. There is no trend that they can point to. The statistics are so inconsistent and so incomprehensible that it becomes completely difficult to draw any kind of trend, right? And that includes white, black, Asian, whatever, right? That's down the line. And that's mainly because, in particular, when they found these reports with the certain police stations, I think it was a study with OCC, right? They found that police officers would routinely identify certain people as Asian, despite them being either Turkish, British white, and Afghan.
So that's
already showing that we already have statistics that are very difficult to interpret, right? And bear in mind, when you do a study, it's over a long spectrum of time, just so that it's valid, right? It's a valid representation of a long period of time, which then you can draw conclusions and, predictions for the future and prognosis, right? But where I draw a problem in particular is where the study itself is saying that the evidence is incomprehensive. Where did the British public then take it upon themselves to change what the study and the certified researchers have said about the statistics?
People can jump to conclusions. I think the government is trying to find a way that we can have this debate without it being divisive.
I was going to say in particular as well, when we say have this debate, you need to remember the government is in charge of the whole country, right? Right now we have a big problem with national security, right? I'm not going to say terrorism because that puts it in a certain people's onus. National security, right? Grooming gangs are the least of the priority when it comes to just child sexual exploitation within that sect of people in general, the researchers and the people trying to stop it. It's the least crime that you'll be affected by sexually as a child, right? Child pornography? No, I understand. Fair enough. But that's why we have a conversation, though. Because if I know this, then I can relate that to you, and you feel a little bit less burdened by any privilege or any hate to project that onto a certain group of people, and then you can have a little bit more of a fair conversation and push a possible solution.
No matter what the statistics, the government has got to be seen to be dealing with the problem, and not
Of
just
course.
sweeping it under the carpet.
No, you got to deal with the issue.
But that's the thing,
Yeah,
like,
that's
we
the
give it
real
issue.
problem. That's why a lot of people are getting upset. It's because they don't see that something is being done.
I was going to say in particular, the government have appointed certain bodies in order to research this. These bodies that they've appointed to research, you guys seem to disregard. That's my point. So they do the work, but you guys then say, oh, that's not enough. What more do you want? In particular, when we talk about Tommy Robson, right, he's racked up a £10 million debt in taxes. And we already know that the police are having their fundings cut, right? Why are you then creating more problems so that the police can't tackle this problem?
You're saying me?
No. Generally. Don't ever feel like I'm persecuting you. Never that. But in particular, I'm saying, the British public have a problem with the way the government are dealing with it. But you're doing the complete opposite. You're counterproductive.
At the moment, they're not telling people what they're doing.
Well, the thing is, like I said, with, say, the Tommy Robson case, right, they can't tell people what they're doing because it then creates a public bias, right, that can then infringe on the integrity of cases. The reason Tommy Robson was arrested is because he almost fucked up a whole procedure, meaning that we could have got groomers back on our streets because they could have claimed there's too much of a public bias. We were always going to get convicted and it wasn't a fair trial. So there's a reason for these things.
So in particular, in a very unsophisticated way, he sees there's a problem.
Unsophisticated.
And he wants to find a solution, and he's scratching around to find a solution. And I think people are doing things, the government are doing things, but they just need to be telling people.
No, I understand, but the thing is, the government can only be as transparent as the bodies allow them to be. If they think that a case is going to crumble because they're going to sell out information, they won't put out that information because they don't want the case to crumble and they don't want convicts back on our streets.
I understand that. In the government's response, it says there's a link to various policies that they're doing. It says they're going to be looking at policing of the crimes of the grooming gangs, protection of girls, and also then rehabilitation.
Of course.
But,
which is the most important thing, rehabilitation 100%.
But when they say that they're open for a debate about the racial and religious motivations of the crime, there's not one thing in those linked documents that refers to that.
Yeah.
So they've got, I don't know, maybe this is just a start of an idea that they've got, but it's not evidence by anything that they're doing.
No, I understand, and I think this is where we need to think about it pragmatically in the sense that the government is almost like a company, right? So anything they say, they can be held accountable against. So if they were to acknowledge that there's a supposed grooming gang thing that is mostly Asian, right? And someone goes out and attacks someone because of that, right? And then they find out statistically that Asians are actually less likely to groom than think. The government are then accountable, they're already accountable for the attacks led on that person. So they have to be very careful with their wording. The government is already as biased as it is, but even with that in particular, and that's why human rights are really important, they can't fuck around with stuff like that because they know that they'll be held accountable.
Careful,
of course.
And if they are too careful, then people don't see that they're doing anything. So they've got to tread a fine line. But at the moment, there's not enough to say what they're doing.
But this is the problem. Like, I feel like in particular, when we say that they don't tackle certain racial groups and stuff, what does that mean for Jimmy Savile? What does that mean for Rolf Harris? What does that mean for Chris Denning? What does that mean for David Huckle, right? The guy who was in Malaysia and abused. Malaysia is a majority Muslim place, and he abused 200 Malaysian girls. He came back to the UK and made a forum telling people how easy it is to go out to majority Muslim countries and abuse young girls. His youngest victim was 2. Right? So in particular, when we say that government has a problem with identifying certain groups of people, I disagree because they've never been found to say anything about Jimmy Savile and all the white people in particular who are abusing girls. But when it comes to Asian, there's all of a sudden this massive pressure to then acknowledge that there's a problem within the Asian community. Now, my thing is where I draw the line is, I don't have a problem with either community. When there's an abuser, it's an abuser to me. It doesn't matter if they're white, it doesn't matter if they're Asian, right?
Well, I think the public will, if they see that a problem is being dealt with, then they're not going to be particularly vocal in pushing for it to be dealt with because they can see here with the grooming gangs, it's not obvious.
But the only thing is, Jimmy Savile was not tackled properly. It was led on for 50 years, and we now know that there are official bodies who knew that this thing was going on.
It's terrible what has happened, but it's something he's dead. So
I understand, but it doesn't exactly absolve any of that crime happening. There's still children who are alive, feeling the detriment of Jimmy Savile's abuse.
You're not going to get thousands of people jumping up and down for something to be done about a dead person.
But you're going to get, but there was a system. There was a system that allowed him to get away with that. If that was a black celebrity, it wouldn't happen. It would not happen. So in particular, when they say you don't want to jump off and want to down people, Jimmy Savile,
like Cosby.
Cosby, in
You
particular.
said it wouldn't happen with black people. What about
So have you
Cosby?
followed the Cosby case?
No, I just
No.
you brought up race
If you're going to
and
bring
you
up,
say
yeah,
that
no,
they
I
just
understand.
jumped to mind
I understand.
straight
If you're going to bring up a case in particular, right?
Yeah, which
In
you
particular,
did, yeah.
wait, I'm going to compare the Cosby case to the Jimmy Savile case.
Yeah.
Cosby didn't use the NHS to groom
So
girls.
you be careful when you bring up the racial
I understand.
issue
No.
because I've knocked you back straight
That's
away.
fine. That's fine. I'm going to address that. And if you can address me, then I'll consider, okay, you know what, I use the racial card. Okay. Cosby never used a healthcare system to systematically abuse girls.
Oh,
The
they're not
police
comparable,
police never covered up for him. The government didn't know what he did. The only reason Cosby was found out is because his victim had the bravery to come out and say so. Now wait. In particular,
Just like with Weinstein, people knew what he was doing and didn't say
Of course,
anything. They would know what Cosby was doing and didn't say anything. So there are some comparisons
in
there.
particular, I'm asking you in particular, who knew about Cosby apart from the victims?
Well, I don't know that. We'll probably find that out.
But we know that Jimmy Savile was known to the NHS, the police, and the government. So, in particular, when I say black people, it wouldn't happen, it's because we don't have establishments helping us out.
Cosby's not here, he's over there.
No, that's fine. If you want to talk about American law, we can get into that as well. I'm very versed on the subject. But in particular, when you say don't bring up the race card, which I love, this new right-wing thing of don't bring up the race card, you guys don't not you, but right-wing in particular.
You're
Seem
trying to
to,
put me in a box there.
no,
Right-winger.
that was my bad. But in particular, they seem to not really fathom the thing of race, in particular. Cosby, like I said, was able to get away with groping, right? And that's the only thing he's been convicted of. I wouldn't doubt if he's done anything else, but that's the only thing he's been convicted
Like
of.
you say, they aren't particularly comparable, the two cases.
They aren't comparable. So that's what I'm trying to say in particular. When you bring up Cosby, in particular to Jimmy Savile, you had a whole establishment backing him up.
Yeah, it's outrageous.
When
If you're a
would you-
celebrity, it seems you can get away with
Oh,
it. Or you used to
100%,
be.
100%. In particular, I was asked, where has it ever been shown there is a black person with the establishment backing him, hiding all of his abuses? Would you not
have
say?
to ask someone else to
Would you
think
not
about
say?
that.
I understand.
No
No,
one
that's
jumps
fair
to mind.
enough. I can't draw a conclusion, but from what I've seen, none. Right? But what I'm trying to say is that level of privilege, in particular, is not afforded to other races, and it's used often as a card to discredit these people. So when we're talking about Jimmy Savile, I'm talking about Jimmy Savile in the sense that this was someone who the public adored, they admired, they pushed upon, and oftentimes he was using the tax funds that we would contribute to the BBC and stuff like that. So we were paying for this guy to abuse girls. And then furthermore, it's a thing where there's the parents as well. Whether or not you're at the establishment, right, and your job is under threat, you are the parents of these children. Where were you? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Mm-hmm. So in particular, when we talk about these cases, there's a lot of things in particular that people are in denial about. When it comes to parenting, we're terrible. At identifying abuse, symptoms of abuse, we're terrible. Whether you're white or black, we're terrible at it. And in particular, the white community in Britain seems to be in denial that their parenting needs a little bit of a rain check. Because in particular, these young girls,
Some support in
yeah, no, I understand. But these young girls in particular, a lot of them were in care homes. I'll give you that. A lot of them were in care homes. But that's because, again, the parents couldn't build enough of a stable environment for them to live under. Furthermore, a lot of the parents.
This country gives a very good impression of not.
You can, no, 100%.
Care homes are nothing, is it?
No,
It's
you can.
it's Muslim, English, there's loads of them.
Say that again?
You're trying to justify care home and all that. Nonsense and
No,
nonsense.
no, understanding.
Muslim, English, nonsense and nonsense.
I understand.
Comes from all
Understanding.
communities, there's no excuse for it. And that's it.
Understanding and justification is completely different. I can explain them. If you want, I can explain them. But you don't want to explain. You don't want to hear it. So this is the problem.
I just said
to him.
Okay.
There's justification and there's finding out in particular why it happened. Right? In particular. He didn't want to hear it. You see what I'm trying to say? I wanted
It's
to
quite
educate.
easy just to say something and walk away, isn't it? Yeah, it's very easy.
Yeah, exactly. It's very easy to walk away when.
What I was in the middle of saying
Yeah,
when
go on.
he stepped in was I think this country gives a very good impression of not caring what
100%,
happens
yeah.
to poorer and less educated.
That's it.
Children,
That's it. Regardless if you're black or white, if you're poor, you're not worth much. And the thing is, this is where I feel liberalism has lost its way. Because liberalism used to fight for human rights to the point where stuff like this didn't happen because we held our governments accountable. But slowly and slowly, we've separated to the point where liberalism to us is a joke. it's feminists trying to get tampon tax and equal pay that doesn't really meet the numbers that we actually kind of like know about.
Sounds like we've found a lot of common ground.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the funny thing. When people do come here, they find out they have more common ground with people than they do separatists. It's just, again,
a lot of people are always looking for the thing that they can disagree with, rather than finding the thing that they
100%. And the thing is, again, I come from this from a point of view where I'm not Muslim. I don't have any allegiance towards my own race. I don't hate white people in particular. My girlfriend is white. And in particular, I feel like there is a lot of political correctness that has demonized white people over the last 5 years. That is not fair. But in particular, I have to call out bullshit because I don't want the integrity of that bit where, in particular, I remember ages ago on campus they were saying like, all white men are racist. Not racist, rapists. I was like, you can't put stuff like that up.
Oh, you're right, yeah.
You can't put stuff like that up.
Postmodernists, social justice warriors.
Yeah, and it's a thing where it's like social justice used to mean to me, the civil rights, where they marched upon Congress and ordered them to give the ability to vote and have a voice to all people of color. It wasn't just blacks, it was literally to all people of color. That's something serious and something that's given us more freedoms today. But stuff like you say, with the regressive left and stuff like that, tampon tax, that doesn't benefit no one. That doesn't benefit anyone's human rights for the long term. It's all very short term, very shallow goals. And I feel in particular that that's where we lost our way. Liberalism is key. Education is key. But we've just seemed to take in this whole competition of who's more edgy now, who's more kind of like sensational, who can get more headlines. And we've lost...
That's divisive, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just divisive. It doesn't do anything for anyone. In particular, when I've met a lot of people in this park that have travelled, and the thing is, they travel from Leeds, Leicester, to come here because they've seen the videos, and fair play to them. That's bravery. You come all the way from Leeds knowing that you may meet a hostile environment, but because you believe in it so much, you come down here. That kind of energy can be put to fighting for human rights. But in particular, when I've met a lot of people and I've discussed the statistics, I've discussed just Tommy Robson's like business plan, and I love to call it a business plan because that's all it is to him, it's a business. But they've often kind of taken the hostility down, they've humbled themselves, and the community is very kind of like overwhelming because they don't want any hostility, they don't want any attention, they don't want any like violence.
I noticed a lot of people call him racist, but he's bending over backwards to show he's not racist.
The thing is, I wouldn't say Tommy is a racist in the classic sense that he does anything that would...
It's a method of shutting down the conversation, saying.
I was going to say, with some people it is. With Tommy Robson it isn't, because I have specific evidence where he's actually been quoted saying racist things.
Oh, we all make mistakes.
I understand.
And I've seen him apologising for mistakes that he's made.
I understand, but where you deny your racism in particular and do it behind closed doors, you are a racist in particular. Stuff like saying that, basically one joke was during Halloween, kids dress as liars, thieves, and cheats. In 20 years, our kids going to be dressing up as Muslims. And it's like stuff like that. It's not a joke. It's not a joke. You can say that he's got freedom of speech and whatever, but that's not a joke, and we know it's not a joke. And we've allowed the commonplace.
Say that again. I haven't heard this.
Yeah, it's tweets. If you go in particular, type in Tommy's racist tweets, people will give you a load of evidence as to what he's done. Another one. I'll give you another thing. Another guy was like, how do Muslims practice safe sex? They paint an X on a donkey. You can't
These
deny.
are sort of jokes that I used to hear at school.
I understand.
Schoolboy humor.
I understand, but you can't deny that. Unfortunately, it comes from a very, very racist background. Whether or not you feel it's lighthearted or whatever, Tommy Robson is not the Asian that has to deal with the hardship of Asian people. So that's not his joke to make. Muslims can make that joke because that's their hardship. But Tommy, that's not his joke. It'd be like me saying in particular, oh, why do Irish people can't govern themselves or whatever? Oh, it's because the British man isn't there. That's not funny. Like if you've been to Ireland, you know the activism is so deeply ingrained, even in their youth. That's not funny. The violation of Irish people by the British is historic. It's epidemic, and Ireland right now are making some of the greatest strides that we haven't seen in the last 10 to 5 years. Politically, they're making great strides. They have a gay mayor. In what world? 2018, they have a gay mayor. And Ireland used to be a heavily Catholic country, meaning that a lot of people have an allegiance to the religion. The fact that they could see it past the guy's sexuality to vote him in for his policies says that Ireland is beyond the state of politics.
We've got a lot to answer for historically as a nation, but to ask people, the children, young people of today to answer for that, I think is wrong.
No, I agree. I think I agree with you on this one.
And there seems to be a tendency in society.
I think in particular,
and I've seen it in the States.
Yeah, and I think in particular with
I think it's a dead end.
With America, I don't think America's a lot less valid than Britain. I think Britain tries to make steps towards kind of like vindicating themselves of their past atrocities. America, for me, doesn't necessarily show that. We've still got like the various unarmed shootings and stuff like that. But when we talk about Britain in particular, I was reading about Palestine when they first kind of like made Palestine in particular. And to me, when reading the history, it always seemed like they felt very remorseful, the fact that they could never deliver Palestine to the Arab people. It never felt like they kind of messed up the area and then just left. No, they were constantly trying to fix it, but a lot of Brits were dying because Israeli terrorists were killing British people. So in particular, Britain has a lot to answer for, and this is where, in particular, we do look to the youth to kind of make sure that stuff like Tommy's stuff doesn't become commonplace, because stuff like that very slowly is what gave rise to the mandate to treat people the way they were in second-class citizens.
That's why the government needs to show what it's doing to deal with the abuse of
I can agree.
girls.
I can agree. The abuse of children
If
the whole.
the society as a whole doesn't see that there's proper action going on, then they're going to be jumping up and down until they do.
I agree. And the thing is, it's revolution. You can't stop revolution, because ultimately people always want to be treated better. But the thing is, we will never have a revolution as long as we're split like this. As long as we put divisive subjects out here and everyone is divided, we will never have a revolution.
No, that's the French, they have revolutions. We evolve incrementally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the thing is as well, like say with the war on terror, proudly, a lot of British people were against the war on terror. So democratically, it should have meant that our government never went to war. But they did anyway, without the people's say. And that's something that you should definitely... I
think a lot of people have forgotten that they were supportive, and they've conveniently forgotten that.
It's weird because surveys from back then actually state that they found that most people were actually against it.
All right.
Yeah, surveys from back then, so articles from back when, not just now.
I misremembered. I thought there was a slight demographic in favour.
It depends what town you're in, though. You know, most people in London believe that Brexit was a mistake. If you go out of London, most people believe Brexit was the greatest thing since sliced bread. So it depends where you live. You're going to hear a lot more than so and so. Sorry, guys.
That's me.
But it's the people that are upset about the grooming gangs that voted for Brexit. So
it's weird. Funnily enough, we say that the regressive left, in particular, has stayed silent on it, right? Like you said, the people who are against the grooming gangs voted Brexit. But at the same time, the majority of grooming cases, right, were in these Brexit-voted towns. Meaning that these people who voted Brexit were the same people not addressing the issue of child grooming when they blame the left for it. And it's like, no, you guys, it was at your front door. You didn't say anything about it. Don't talk to the left about not talking about certain issues.
That's how Tommy got interested in activism.
Yeah.
Trying to deal with things that were being ignored in Luton.
Well, yes and no. Tommy was not always involved in activism. From the beginning, Tommy has always been a sketchy character, which again, we all make mistakes. I'm never going to judge anyone for their mistakes.
Have you seen his video of his talk to the Oxford Union?
Yes, utterly embarrassing. I feel sorry for him just in the sense that he's a lad from Luton, right? And he's a football hooligan who spends more time sensationalizing than he does reading. Finding out the truth is very boring. It's very boring.
Very embarrassing. You mean embarrassing in what way?
In the sense that, in particular, students were able to call him out on fallacies within his speech, and he had no response to these students. Now, if I made a topic, I'd be able to then critique the concerns or address the concerns that students have.
A situation like that, people see the person that he is. The fact that he's not as well educated as certain people doesn't detract from his what he's trying to do.
It doesn't at all. But the thing is, it's the merit of his content. If the merit of his content has flaws, it has flaws. Whether or not he's a good guy or a bad guy. If a pedophile tells you the earth is round, and then someone straight told you the earth is flat, who would you believe? Are you going to take character into context? You're not, because you know the earth is round. So in particular, this idea that we need to base our opinion on people and their facts on who they are. It's completely false, and I believe the Oxford people
shouldn't
didn't
judge people on their level of education.
100%. I'm sorry to throw out the P card there. It's a trump card of mine. It's a trump card because I feel like in particular
P card meaning
pedophiles. It catches a lot of people off because like whoa, that escalated. But in particular, I feel like that's a group of people where there's a lot of animosity.
I didn't even notice you said it. To be honest.
Okay. I was basically saying how would you believe a paedophile who told you that the globe was round, or a straight person who told you that the Earth was flat? Do you see what I'm saying?
It's got nothing to do. That's why
exactly. It has nothing to do. Exactly.
It's got nothing to do with
exactly. But that's the problem with politics now. People see the paedophilia before they see the context of the actual debate.
Yes. So people will disregard Tommy Robinson because they see, oh, he's not so well educated. I can just ignore him.
No. We say he's not well educated, we can just ignore him. The Oxford students addressed him. They listened to his speech and they addressed him. They addressed him with critiques. Critiques means that you basically brought in the context of what someone is trying to say, and you then went over it, found out there were flaws, and asked, well, hold up, there's flaws to this theory. How do you plan on addressing these flaws? If you don't have the answers, then your theory is not complete.
He went repeated over and over again, he's trying to solve a problem.
Yeah.
Or he recognises a problem. So you could see in the way he was describing things, he didn't really understand how to deal with it. He just knew that there was something there that needs dealing with.
I understand, and I agree. But
and he's right.
No, I agree. But the thing is, this is what I was saying earlier, there's bodies of people who are in charge of doing this. And when it comes to the statistics, they're very boring, they're very mundane. They don't paint a massive trend where it's very sensational and everyone can jump on and be like, we need to go on a crusade to save all of these girls. It's very, the harsh reality is the statistics are very kind of representative of how the community is in general. Everyone is in their selective kind of like percentage of the population. But when we talk about, say, certain crimes like child pornography, right? There's an over-representation of white Brits. It's 100%. It shouldn't be 100% because Brits are only 81% of the population. Now, no one is on a crusade for that. And this has been known for ages. No one is on a crusade for that. But as soon as it's Muslims,
well, people see that it's being dealt with when abuse is in the home and it gets out and it's dealt with.
Yeah.
So there's a difference there. When people see there's a problem that's not been dealt with, then that's what they'll jump up and
But
down
the problem
about.
is abuse is still rising, so it's clearly not being dealt with. Child abuse has not really gone down. We're finding more and more cases as we go on. So quite clearly, it's still not being tackled. So when you say that one bit's being tackled and the other isn't, all of it isn't being tackled, and that's the boring truth about it.
So we don't care enough about our children.
We don't. Black or white, we don't care. Especially. They don't matter to us. They're of little value. We brush them aside. Whenever something happens to them, it's a pound. It's a slap on the wrist. We don't care about poor people, and this is where a lot of minorities get up in arms because they are overrepresented in poverty within Western countries. But in particular, it doesn't matter whether it's minority, white or black. There's white poor people. And this is why these white girls were groomed, because they were poor. You didn't find any of them middle class. You didn't find any of them educated university staff. You didn't find any of them upper class.
Suggest something then. What are the solutions to the abuse of vulnerable girls?
Yeah.
On the one hand, by grooming gangs, on the other hand, by relatives.
Yeah.
This can be dealt with in the same
I feel like education is the key. I think a lot of people aren't up to date on the research.
Parents having their children with them at home.
Yeah.
Will solve both.
I feel
the grooming gang problem because there will never be.
Sorry to cut you off. I'm gone, man. Nice speaking to you, bro. What's your name, bro?
Rajiv.
Raza, bro. Nice speaking to you.
Have a lovely evening.
Yeah, it's even nice speaking to you, man. I'll see you soon.
Okay.
Take it on. Keep it up, bro. Keep up the stats. I like the stats.
I'll see you later.
I'm going to have a look at it.
No worries. I wanted to genuinely find someone who's talking about Israel and Palestine today, just because in particular I'd love to be a bit more educated on that in particular. I do feel Palestine has been wronged, but I'm hoping an Israeli will tell me a little bit better.
I've thought for a long time that if Palestinians and the Israelis were left
to their own devices.
Well, left to negotiate their own solutions without outside influence, then they might have a better chance.
But this is where I feel sorry for the UK, because in particular, when it first all started, they wanted to create a solvable solution, but they weren't having it. So even like you say, leaving them to their own devices, they haven't even. Sorry. Not get on this. Just kind of like.
Sounds a bit disinterested.
Oh no, sorry. I meant as in like
to negotiate a workable solution.
Yeah.
If the two protagonists are left to talk amongst themselves, rather than people from outside trying to influence.
Yeah, I mean that's the problem with a lot of post-colonial problems, isn't it? Like just a lot of terrible aftermath, which is it's a bit terrible, but that's where education and history really comes in key and having a conversation about it, which is pretty good. It's boring. It's boring to read up. I wouldn't, unless you're really passionate about it, I wouldn't recommend just sitting for a day and reading about Palestine, because there's a lot of treaties, there's a lot of mandates that were rejected and stuff like that, and they're very important because in the beginning the Ottoman Empire was, quite dominant within that region, and the only reason they were able to conquer that region, the British people and the French people, were because they agreed to an uprising from the Muslim majority people within the Ottoman Empire. Now, without that agreement, they wouldn't have the land that is known as Israel today. So there wouldn't be an opening for Jewish people to be like, yo, this is our land.
So this is a case of to solve this problem, I wouldn't start from here.
Yeah, basically. But I'm gonna turn around. It was really nice to meet you. I definitely agree with you in general that there's a lot of things that warrant discussion and a lot of people don't really want to talk about it. But I think where we...
Like the fella, they want to say their soundbite and then...
That's the thing. And it's like, I'm not looking to paint white people a certain way. I'm not looking to paint black people a certain way. I'm not looking to paint Asian people a certain way. If someone does wrong to me, I'm going to call them out. I do wrong, I call myself out every day. I have a girlfriend, she calls me out on everything. So I'm very used to being...
This is how we work out whether we're talking bullshit or not. By
That's it.
Actually speaking the words, and then we can adjust our ideas depending on how it goes.
And I definitely appreciate your mannerisms, because a lot of people do come here and they have a lot of hostility and they don't want to listen. Just like that gentleman over there, they don't want to listen. They're very riled up and they really just want to project that anger. But if people were a lot more like you, I think people would see British people in a completely different light.
A lot of people don't have the confidence to just stand and have a conversation. Everyone's so busy with their machines, they forget how to have a conversation.
Exactly. So, but no, honestly, it's been great.
Okay, what's your name?
Rajiv.
Rajiv, Robert.
Yeah, Robert. Nice to meet you, Rob.
Okay.
Have a good one.
Cool.
That was a lot longer than I expected it to be. I'm really sorry. I didn't even think you were going to record it.
Content over every time. From your melody. Man, say it straight. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to
Probably still wearing his hat.
What's your problem with interracial porn?
It's porn sites.
I don't. Okay, what you have against porn?
Very porn site. Big black guys, smash into pieces. Smash into pieces. Young, small little white girls. Small little white girls.
Gary's probably racist as well. I think.
Black guys are racist into small little white girls.
We're discussing racism here. Respect. We're discussing respect comments.
We like our big shit women. Older women. Come on, man. When was the last time we saw a black giant